All right, we'll go ahead and start this meeting. So hello, everyone. Today is Wednesday, June 12th, 2024, and my name is Angie H, and I am a recovered Al-Anon and will be leading this meeting. We want to welcome everyone to our Al-Anon Big Book Recovery meeting. This is a step speaker meeting that meets every Wednesday night at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we will study the 12 steps by using the precise instructions out of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous as they relate to us as Al-Anon. Let's get our meeting started. This is the original AA preamble written by the AA Grapevine describing the fellowship in 1940. We study the preamble with an open mind and open heart to consider how it applies to Al-Anon. This helps us to stay focused on the message of recovery the pioneers intended while observing the traditions in action. Through the actions taken based on the instructions of the basic text, we comprehend what the pioneers meant when they described the membership of AA, which is that they worked a program of recovery and they no longer drink. In our case, we no longer obsessed over the alcoholic. Through continuous action and study of these principles, the understanding of the value of the original preamble reveals itself. We ask for your humble consideration of our sincere admiration of the pioneers of Alcoholics Anonymous. The simple hope is that we of Al-Anon will grow into the same clarity and unity that birthed the original 12-step fellowship, because without them, after all, none of us would be here. The original AA preamble. We are gathered here because we are faced with the fact that we are powerless over alcohol and unable to do anything about it without the help of a power greater than ourselves. We feel that each person's religious views, if any, are his own affair. The simple purpose of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is to show what may be done to enlist the aid of a power greater than ourselves, regardless of what our individual conception of that power may be. In order to form a habit of depending upon and referring all we do to that power, we must at first apply ourselves with some diligence. By often repeating these acts, they become habitual and the help rendered becomes natural to us. We have come to know that, as alcoholics, we suffer from a serious disease for which medicine has no cure. Our condition may be the result of an allergy which makes us different from other people. It has never been permanently cured by any treatment with which we are familiar. The only relief we have to offer is absolute abstinence, the second meaning of AA. There are no dues or fees. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. Each member squares his debt by helping others to recover. An Alcoholics Anonymous member is an alcoholic who, through the application of and adherence to the AA program, has forsworn the use of any and all alcoholic beverages in any form. The moment he takes so much as one drop of beer, wine, spirits, or any other liquid containing alcohol, he automatically loses all status as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. AA is not interested in sobering up drunks who are not sincere in their desire to stay sober for all time. Not being reformers, we offer our experience only to those who want it. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and on which we can join in harmonious action. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our program. Those who do not recover are people who will not or simply cannot give themselves to this simple program. Now, you may like our program, or you may not, but the simple fact remains that it works, and we believe is our only chance to recover. There is a vast amount of fun included in the AA fellowship. Some people might be shocked at our seeming worldliness and levity, but just underneath there lies a deadly earnestness and a full realization that we must put first things first, and with each of us, the first thing is the solution to our alcoholic problem. To drink is to die. Faith must work 24 hours a day in and through us, or we perish. In order to set our tone for this meeting, I ask that we bow our heads in a few moments of silent prayer and meditation, followed by the Serenity Prayer. Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will, not mine, be done. I wish to remind you that whatever is said at this meeting expresses our own individual opinion as of today and as of up to this moment. We do not speak for AA as a whole, and you are free to agree or disagree as you see fit. In fact, it is suggested that you pay no attention to anything which might not be reconciled with what is in the AA Big Book. If you don't have a Big Book, it is time you bought one. Read it, study it, live with it, follow the directions in it, and learn what it means to be an AA. That's the end of the preamble. A sponsor is anyone who has had a psychic change as a result of working the steps and has the willingness to work with others. For those looking for a sponsor to guide them through the steps, please stay tuned and have your pens ready to record phone numbers immediately after the meeting. Each Al-Anon group ought to be a spiritual entity having but one primary purpose, that of carrying the message to the Al-Anon who still suffers. This is our primary spiritual aim. Our job as a group is to provide people with a place to learn about and work the steps. It has been our experience that working the steps consistently provides us with a better, saner life. We consider all else to be an outside issue. This includes personal problems. The proper venue for sharing such problems is with the sponsor. This is, after all, where real recovery takes place in working the steps with the sponsor. We are just so glad we are all here, and we are all here because we are not all there. There will be a period of fellowship after the meeting. If you have questions, if you need a sponsor, if you need to check in or get current, or if you want to discuss other literature, please stick around for the fellowship. That will be a better time for these subjects. Okay, so yeah, this is our step speaker meeting, and last week we covered steps 1 through 3, and tonight I will give a little brief, I'll give a brief review of steps 1 through 3, and then we are going to talk about steps 4 through 6. So, I will go ahead and hang on. I'm working on my pad tonight since I don't have power. Okay. So I'm going to just dive in here and give a little bit review of steps 1 through 3 before we hop into steps 4 through 6, because it's really important. Steps 1 through 3 are our decision steps, right? So, and the steps are written on page 59 of the Big Book. So if you want to use that, you can. And again, if you weren't here last week, there is a recording on our YouTube channel, and you can listen to that recording of steps 1 through 3. But I am using the 4th edition of the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book. And we're going to use this Big Book to study and understand our problem, because that's really important, is that we have an understanding of our problem, but also that we are understanding and having more compassion for the alcoholic, because it really is a misunderstood illness. And, in order for us to apply the right solution, we have to understand the problem. So, if we go, step 1 says we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. And I talked a lot about this last week, because there is a misconception before, I had that same misconception myself, is that I'm powerless over the alcoholic, or I'm powerless over people or places or things in my life. But that's really not true. For us, we are powerless over alcohol because the alcoholic loved one in our life is powerless. So we are also powerless because we are not able to change or control or manage or manipulate them, right? Because we're human. So we do not have the power to change them. And so that's really hard for us, because, we want what's best for our loved one. And, it hurts us, right? To see them suffering, and we want to help them. We want to fix them. And so we will do all of these things, and at some point, if we're chronic, all of those solutions that are going to try aren't going to work anymore, right? Like all the self-help book, all the human aid, all the therapists, all of that stuff, take warm bubble bath, self-care, all of this stuff that we try to do. Eventually, we're going to run out of options if we are the chronic type. And that's important for us to understand, is that just because you were raised in an alcoholic home, or if you're living with an alcoholic, or your friend is an alcoholic, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be chronic, right? Everybody, it's different for everybody. There's different scenarios. So it's really important that we understand that. To qualify, it's, can you stop? Can you stop trying to control and manage? When you say you're going to stop, can you stop for good and all? Or you keep going back to it, So that's what distinguishes us between a normal Al-Anon and the chronic Al-Anon, right? So we really have to understand this step one, and it's really important. We have to be all in step one, and most of us are already at step one when we come to the room. We're already there, right? Because we know we've tried everything, and we're just sick and tired of the way that our life is going. So this step one is super important. All right. And then we have step two, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So yeah, this step, a lot of times people get so stuck on it, and it's really not supposed to be something that we overthink, but it really boils down to, how desperate are you? How desperate are you to stop the way that you're living your life, right? I know for me, I was so tired of controlling and managing everybody and everything in my life. It was just so exhausting. And so it really boils down to that, that gift of desperation that we come in the rooms with. And then, are you willing just to believe that this works for your sponsor? Are you willing to believe that there is a power greater than yourself? That's all it is, right? We are just making a decision. And that's really it, right? We don't even have to have our higher power defined. And it's that simple, right? We can overcomplicate this and overthink it, and it's not supposed to be that hard. We're just supposed to keep moving, right? We're supposed to work these steps in order and work them fast. So, it's just, yes. Do you believe you're powerless and that your life has become unmanageable? Check, right? Step two, I'm willing to believe there is a power greater than myself. And then step three, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Now, I know this step can sound really scary and intimidating and daunting, right? Because what does it mean to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God? But this is simply our thoughts and our actions, right? We're making that decision. We're letting God take the steering wheel, and we're going to let him drive, because the way that we've been driving hasn't been working, right? And that's really it. You're just making a decision that you're no longer running the show, right? And God will be running the show. That's it. We won't know how to turn our will and our life over to the care of God when we get here. That's crazy to think that, right? But we're just making a decision to continue on our journey, right? To continue on with the steps with our recovered sponsor, and they will show us the way, and the big book will give us the answers, will give us the directions. We just have to follow it in order. So that's a little review of steps 1 through 3. And I'm going to hop into step 4. Let me scroll down to my script here. Okay, step 4. Okay. So yeah, as I just mentioned, steps 1, 2, and 3 are decisions. That's it. They're just decisions. And they're important decisions. And step 3 is a very important. It's the last decision step. And that is a very important step, because that's where it's like a turning point for us, right? There's only 2 doors. We can keep going the way that we're going, trying to control and manage everyone, everything in our life, because, here's the thing. Even if we didn't have an alcoholic in our life today, we're still going to try and control. If we're chronic, we're still going to try and control and manage the loved ones or our friends or anyone in our life. That's just what we do, right? And even if your alcoholic loved one is getting recovered, that doesn't matter, because we're going to find something else to nitpick and nag about, right? If we're not sane and fit spiritual condition, that's exactly what's going to happen. So steps 1, 2, and 3 are very important decisions. But the rest of the steps are action steps. So without taking the action, we're never going to be recovered. Faith without works is dead. The big book talks about that throughout. I can't tell you how many times it's repeated, but it's a lot. So, step 4, we're at step 4, and this is our first action step. It says after we take that last decision, we're going to launch into action. So, step 4 made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So this is a big deal for us because we probably have never done anything remotely close to this, right? And I mean, maybe we've come close. Maybe we've done some workbooks, maybe we've worked with a therapist. We've done some work, but have we been completely honest with ourselves? Probably not. So this is where we're going to get really honest, and this is our inventory. It's not about anyone else. It's about us. Where have we been wrong? What is our part in all of this stuff that we're holding on to? So this moral inventory, we're going to talk about this more in a minute, but we're going to fill out these sheets that our sponsor gives us after we take our third step. And it's going to be resentment, fears, and sex conduct. And all of this stuff has been blocking us off from the sunlight of the spirit. So we haven't even been able to connect to a higher power because we have been blocked off, right? We've been running on self, and we've been just trying to live day to day, trying to control and manage the alcoholic in our life, and it's just running us into the ground. And we're not able to even if we had a higher power in our life, we don't even know how to connect to it at this point because we have just been so blocked off, right? It's the spiritual malady. So this is probably the first time where we're going to get really honest and see some hard truths, right? And, our sponsor in the 5th step, we'll talk about that in a minute. I don't want to get too far ahead, but our sponsor is actually going to be guiding us and showing us some truths that we just haven't, it's not our fault. We just have this mental blind spot, and it's not our fault that we don't even recognize that we are actually selfish, right? Because our motives are based on selfishness, and most of the time we're running off of fear. So, we're fearful of what's going to happen to our alcoholic loved one. Are the bills going to get paid? Is this going to happen? And we just go down this rabbit hole, just this rabbit hole, and we can't stop. So, sorry, I'm digressing a little, but, so this is the first time we're going to actually get honest, and our sponsor is going to help us see some things that we were not able to see when we were in our illness. And this is such a good step. I know it sounds so scary, but, I was so desperate. I was willing to do anything it took. And so again, it really just goes back to that gift of desperation. And I realized, hey, my sponsor did it, and all the other recovered members on this phone line had to do it. So yeah, it's going to be great, and we just have to trust the process. And this is not meant to be a weapon to beat ourselves up and get more into self-pity and, victim mode and all this stuff. No, this is just a tool. We're just looking at the facts. All right, so let me see. I'm going to go to page 62, and that says selfishness, self-centeredness. That, we think, is the root of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. We step on the toes of our fellows, and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find that at some time in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. So, yeah, this is really good stuff here. We are driven by selfishness. It's not our fault, but we do have this illness. And this mental obsession. And we can't stop, no matter what's at stake, no matter what the consequences are. We just are not able to stop our thinking, right? And then we start acting on our thoughts, which gets us into more trouble, right? So, but it also says that sometimes we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate, or sometimes they hurt us without provocation. So, both of these things can be true. And it's really important for us to understand that there can be some gray areas, right? For us, it's like we think in black and white so much, like just so much black and white. But no, there can be people that hurt us, right? Because that's life. It doesn't mean it's okay. It doesn't mean that it's okay if, so many people have been raised up in different situations. Everybody's life story is different, but there can be trauma. There can be abuse. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I have heard in Fifth Steps that, it's like, it's horrible, but that's true. And it's life, right? Bad things happen to good people all the time. But what we're going to do with this information is look at it, from a place of today. So we're not going to look at it from the past. We're going to put ourselves in our adult shoes of now, like of today. And we're going to look at the facts. And that's it, right? We're not going to wrapped up in feelings. It's okay to have feelings, but we're going to look at the facts. So again, we can't do this on our own. We're going to need to work really close with our sponsor on this. And that's why these steps weren't made to be worked on our own. So we have to have a sponsor that has trudged the same road, who has found recovery, that worked these same steps and, was able to recover. I was trying to talk about on this. Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to go to page 63. It says next we launched out on a course of vigorous action. The first step of which is a personal house cleaning, which many of us had never attempted. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and to be rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. The first thing I see here is that this decision was vital and crucial, right? If we don't take these steps in order and follow them, and if we withhold things from our inventory, we're only harming ourselves. We're not going to get recovered. The big book says, half measures availed us nothing, right? So we're going to get really honest. We're going to write down everything. And there may be some things that we forget that happened, but as long as we're being honest, and later on, if they reveal themselves to us, we tell our sponsor immediately, right? We have to live in vigorous honesty. And so this is vital and crucial, which, I just think of, someone that's having their vitals checked at the hospital or something, right? Like, it's vital that we take this step. This is very important for us because all of these things that we've been holding on to, is what we are, what is blocking us off from the sunlight of our spirit. I don't want to sound redundant here, but it's true, right? So we have to be willing to let these things go. And again, that may take time, but we just have to be willing. And, that's a later step. I don't want to get too far ahead, but so for us, our thinking and our controlling and managing is but a symptom. For the alcoholic, it's liquor. It was a symptom, right? They get that ease and comfort. For us, our control, managing, thinking, that is a symptom. So we're going to get down to all those fears that we're running off of, all those resentments that are like the number one offender. We'll talk about that next. But, it's a very humbling and, ego deflating process. let's see, page 64. A business that takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One subject is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of the values. So again, this is just a fact-finding and fact-facing process. We are just looking for the facts, okay? There's, it's not about feelings, this person did me really wrong. No, we're going to look at the facts. Where were we to blame? Where were we to blame? And we'll talk about that in step 5. But, we really just want to be honest. So we just want to start writing everything down that has been piling up all these years. And resentment, we're going to start there. So, yeah, like, for instance, if somebody is operating a grocery store, well, you have to get rid of all that spoiled food, right? It's not going to sell. So just like that, we have to get rid of all of that spoiled junk that we've been holding on to because it's not doing us any good. It's not. It's like we just keep replaying it in our minds. And we need to make room for a new beginning. And the only way to do that is to get rid of all this old junk that we've been holding on to. So it's time. We're going to throw it all out and we're going to start with a brand new shelves, right? So we can fill our shelves with, new things, having open perspective and new eyes to see life differently. So let's see. Hang on one second. Yeah. And again, we need to just be really honest. And I know for me, there were things that came up later that I just totally just forgot. And I called my sponsor and I told her, I was like, hey, I totally forgot. I got in this huge fight with my roommate, back in college and, I forgot all about these things. So, that can happen. But the point is we want to get everything out on paper that we remember. And as long as we are not withholding any information, we're good, right? So it says resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles. Hang on one second. I'm sorry. I got distracted. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. We asked ourselves why we were angry. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore. We were burned up. So we're going to start with resentments. It's the number one offender. And this is really important because it's not, a resentment is something that we replay, refeel, or rethink. And that was really important for me to understand, because I thought I had to be angry at someone. Well, no. And for us Al-Anons, we replay, refeel, and rethink everything. At least I do. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a character defect that we all have. And, it's okay that everybody at some degree has some resentments, right? We're normal people have resentments. So it's okay, but we don't have the luxury of hanging on to this, right? Because it will just drive us down the drain. And those resentments will kill us, right? And I mean, you can be alive and be dead, but like it kills us. Like our soul is just like sucked out of our body, holding on to all these resentments. So this is really important. And so we're going to write down all of our resentments. But what's really important to understand is that these are just going to be bullet points. And there's an example on page 65. So, our resentments, like it's just, we want to make bullet points. We don't want to write a whole novel and go down this road, listing all of these situations. We want to keep it really simple, right? So it's like an example. It says, I'm resentful at Mr. Brown. The cause, his attention to my wife. Told my wife of my mistress. Brown may get my job at the office. So we're keeping it really short and sweet, to the point, right? Just make little bullet points. And again, your sponsor will give you these instructions. But that's it, right? And then we're gonna check off what it affected, right? It affects my sex relations, my self-esteem, my security, my personal relationships. So all of those things are affected from that resentment. So that's it. That's just, we keep it really simple, straight to the point, make little bullet points. We don't write like a whole novel of why we're mad or why we're refeeling and rethinking. So let's see. It also says on page 66, it is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. But with the alcoholic, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found that it is fatal. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns and we drink again. And with us, to drink is to die. Or to think is to die, right, for us. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are poison. So yeah, I already kind of pointed that out. Like, we don't have the luxury of sitting in this resentment, because it just kills us. And, we just can't do it. We have to let it go. And, unfortunately, we don't know how to do that without working these steps, right? If we knew how to do that, we wouldn't be here. So, keep that in mind. We mean well. It's not our fault that we have this mental illness or this illness of mind. We're going to learn a new way of how to handle this because, we're not going to have perfect lives after we work these steps. People may still cause us to be mad, but now we're going to have a new way of dealing with it. We're not going to have to go down that rabbit hole of thinking and planning and plotting. No longer. We are going to turn everything over to our higher power. But for us to think is to die. And, we do that. We're going to hold on to this resentment and we're just going to push everything, even if it's good, away in our life just because of our thinking. We have this stinking thinking and it just gets us into a pickle every time. But again, we're not able to see the truth from the false. So it really takes us living really close with our higher power and with our sponsor so that they can keep us, seeing the truth. Okay, so now let's see, page 67. So notice, I'm sorry, we're going to go back. It says, notice the word fear is bracketed alongside the difficulties with Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, the employer, and the wife. This short word somehow touches about every aspect of our lives. It was an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. It set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve. But did we not ourselves set the ball rolling? Sometimes we think fear ought to be classed with stealing. it seems to cause more trouble. So this is starting to talk about the fears on our inventory. And we all have fears, right? And there's nothing wrong. I mean, there are going to be times where we're going to have fear, but what we do with our fear is ultimately the purpose of doing our inventory, because we've been running on our fears. But this is going to give us directions on what to do with our fears from here on out, right? So we're going to get rid of all of those fears, and we're going to ask God to help us remove those fears. So it says we reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper, even though we had no resentment in connection with them. We asked ourselves why we had them. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? Self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it was worse. So yeah, we are going to write all of our fears down and seriously write anything down. I know that I had like spiders and like tornadoes and stuff on mine. I mean, those are real fears for me. So I wrote everything down, and, but the root of fear is selfishness. So, and it's because when we are relying on ourselves, we're not trusting that our higher power will handle the result. So, and it's, again, like we've been blocked off from the sunlight of the spirit for so long. So we haven't even been tapped into the higher power that's within us all, right? So it's not our fault. But soon enough, after we work this step, your fears are going to start dissipating. And it's really amazing. I can't even explain it. But, I started off with so many fears. And today I am able just to hand it over to my higher power. And it's just really amazing. And again, I can't really explain it. It just happened. So, it's not a problem that we have fears, because it's normal, right? There are fears that happen, but what's not okay is that we're not relying and trusting that our higher power will have our back, right? That they have a plan. We should trust the results, that our higher power will handle it, right? But we're gonna live a different way now. We're gonna have this fear prayer. And so when we do have fears that pop up, it says, we asked him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what he would have us be. At once we commenced to outgrow fear. So isn't that beautiful? I mean, everything about this program is just really being willing, right? So if we have a fear that pops up and we're not like able to let it go immediately, we ask God to help us with the willingness to outgrow that fear, right? It's really just that. It's beautiful. So, and for us as Al-Anons, we can just like overthink and overfear literally everything in our life, right? We do that. We just go down this rabbit hole and we're like fearful of everything. And it doesn't have to be that way. That's so exhausting, right? From here on out, we're going to trust that our higher power has us, no matter what happens. Life's going to happen. It doesn't mean that these fears won't happen, but we're going to be okay regardless of what happens, because we have that connection with our higher power and this new way of living. And that's it. Ooh, I'm spending too much time. We're running out. Okay. Page 69. In this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? We asked God to mold our ideals and help us live up to them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised or loathed. So we talked about resentments and fears, and now the last part of the inventory is going to be reviewing our sex conduct. And it's important to understand that we all have like sex powers, right? And we all have sex problems. We wouldn't be human. The big book says this. We wouldn't be human if we didn't have sex problems. So we all have them one way or the other. And what's important here is that we are writing down all the ways that we have used our sex powers in a selfish way, right? To get what we wanted. And for some of us, like maybe that was like withholding sex from our loved one, right? Because we didn't like how they acted. Or we were flirting with married men. Just giving examples from my own experience here. But yeah, whatever the case may be, we have all done things with our sex powers that were selfish to get what we wanted, right? To have that upper hand, to try to control and manage. And, that's what we're looking at. And it's also really cool when you do this step with your sponsor, because you may think like your inventory is like horrible and like you're going to be judged. But this is not what that's about, right? There's no judgment here. This is just about us being willing to get really honest. And, you know, with our sponsor, this is probably the first person that we're going to get really honest with. And, you know, we may have some skeletons in our closet that are hard for us to remove, right? Again, this is just about being willing, and we have to, right? We know that it's a vital step. We have to get all this out or we're not going to get recovered. And we also know that our sponsor also did this, right? If they're working with us, they also had to do this fourth and fifth step. So it's okay. And, you know, our sponsors are going to probably say, hey, like, there's nothing to worry about here, right? Like I've done the same thing in my sex conduct, right? So we're just getting rid of all of this stuff, that we've been holding on to so that we can live, in a new perspective, right? We get new eyes when we work these steps. Okay, let's see. So now we're going to move on to, okay, so yeah, step 5. So we're going to write all of this stuff down with pencil, or pen and paper, I guess the big book says. And then we're going to review this with our sponsor. And it usually takes about 2 hours. And then we're going to take an hour of meditation after. So step 5, it says, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrong. So this is where, and our sponsor will help us, but we're gonna tell them all of our resentments and our fears and our sex conduct, all of this stuff that we have been holding on to. And our sponsor's role here is to help us see things differently. You know, it's to help us look at the facts, look at it from today. Because so many times we can get, you know, in that pity, has, you know, we've been living in these stories, and many times it's not really real. It's like a false reality that we've been living in. And that's okay. Our sponsor is there to help guide us to see the truth, to help us see what role we played. And, you know, if there was abuse or trauma or whatever the case may be, which happened to so many of us, especially if we were raised in an alcoholic family, you know, family life, it's okay. We're just going to look at it from today. So, you know, we're no longer children. We're adults, right? So we, you know, we can stand up for ourselves, and we don't have to live like we are a child anymore, right? So our sponsor is going to help us see the truth and the facts of today. So a lot of times, the only wrongs that we have is that we've been holding on to this stuff for years, right? We haven't been able to let it go. And like, again, I've done so much therapy and so much, you know, self-help stuff, but none of it helped me like this. Going through my inventory with my sponsor was such a relief. Like after I did it, it just felt like a ton of bricks was lifted off of my shoulders. Like I could breathe again. It's so weird. I can't even explain it, but it really is, you know, going through these steps with someone that has been down that road that, you know, sounded really messed up and crazy in their thinking, and they were able to recover, and they just show you how they were able to get out from under, right? And that's it. Like, it's amazing. Okay. So it talks about how, 72. It says, this is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. We think we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. Many of us thought it necessary to go much further. We will be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another person when we see good reasons why we should do so. The best reason first. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Or for us, our thinking, right? Or controlling or managing our alcoholic loved one. So, again, like if we could just give ourselves a solitary self-appraisal, we wouldn't need to be here. But it doesn't work, right? We've been running on self-will. It hasn't been working. Our lives have become unmanageable, and we're going to have to do things differently. And, you know, this one, it does sound really scary that we're going to have to like get all of this stuff out and tell our sponsors. But again, it boils down to that desperation. Like, how willing are you to go to any lengths, right? And you already took your step 3 at this point where, you know, you're willing to go to any lengths and you're turning it all over to your higher power. So you just got to keep going, right? Just trust the process and you will be fine. You will get through it. And again, like it is an amazing and humbling process to go through this inventory with your sponsor. It also goes on to say, time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves, but they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story. So again, like this is just telling us how it is, right? I mean, this is the experience of the founders of AA. And there were people that weren't able to get recovered because they did not get honest. This is such an important step. We have to be willing to get honest. And, you know, I promise that our sponsors have heard it all. When they're taking someone through that fifth step, they've heard so many things, and it's not going to be shocking. You're not going to be judged. This is really just that step to get honest, to set a new foundation, to start living a new way of life. So I know it sounds really scary to do this, but it really is such an important and humbling process, and a vital step. So we all have to do it if we want to get that recovery that the founders had. So on page 73, it says, more than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents a stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. So again, we have been doing this in our life, right? Like we've been playing a double life, you know? We just do that because it gives us ease and comfort. So, you know, to our friends and family, we might have like masked this whole entire time because we were afraid to be honest, right? It's that fear. It drives us. We're afraid to be honest with ourselves and with others in our life. So, you know, for me, I know I just walked around with a smile planted on my face for years. And, you know, just tried keeping everything under the rug. Everything's fine. I'm fine. I was so just like dishonest with myself. I wasn't able to see the truth. It was delusional, right? But this is where we're going to start to see the truth. And, we're going to be okay. You know, it doesn't matter if our alcoholic loved one is getting recovered. It's not about them. This is about us. So we're going to be okay regardless of what happens from here on out, right? Um, okay, so after we do our fifth step with our sponsor, we're going to take an hour of meditation time. So on page 75, it's going to go through these directions. It says returning home. We find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. So this is very important, and we really do need to do this step. I know it sounds crazy to spend an hour in silence, but this is, for most of us, the first time that we are making that conscious contact with our higher power. So this is where we're going to set that foundation. And it's really important that we don't skimp on the cement, right? We want to make sure we have laid out the foundation and there aren't any cracks, right? Because this is a brand new way of living for us. It's basically like uprooting a tree and planting it in new soil. Like that's what we are doing in this process. And it's amazing, but we have to follow it, right? Exactly as it's written. Cause it's a recipe. So again, like this is the first time we're going to connect with our higher power probably. And we're just going to go over everything that our sponsor has helped us to see. And, it's an amazing process. So we're just going to go over it all. And then we're going to be willing to let go of these things that we have been clinging on to. So after our hour, we're going to take our step 6 and we're going to do this on our own. Step 6 says we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. So that's step 6, right? So we're going to do our 5th step with our sponsor. We're going to take our hour of meditation, and then we're going to ask God to remove all these defects of character. And, some of us might be clinging on to some of these things. It's hard to let them go, especially this isn't an overnight matter, right? Like we might still be clinging on to something, but we just have to have the willingness to let them go. And God makes that possible, right? Again, we can't do this on our own. We have to ask God to help us. So this is really setting our foundation to continue to seek God with everything, right? We have to continue to seek God. So let's see, page 76. It says, we have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all these things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can he now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. So again, I already said that, but this really is just about honesty and willingness. So that's it, right? Some of these things are going to be hard. We might still be clinging on to some resentment, but how is it serving you, right? Like you kind of have to look at it, and that's what our sponsors are there for, to help us see things differently, to help us get new eyes and to say hey, this isn't working. Like you've been holding on to this, and we have to look at it differently. Consider a different view, right? Okay, so wow, I think that's step 6. So that's the end, and I'm almost at time, I guess, with 55 minutes. So yeah, this is a beautiful step, and I'll just review. So let's see, step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And it's really beautiful. I'm going to read one part here because this was it. Oh, here it is. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to say the 5th step promises, because these are promises that we get after we take the 5th step. So it says, we pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twisted character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken the step withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. we begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. Oh man, and I can tell you that for most of us it's slow to happen. I know for me it was pretty slow to happen, but you should definitely feel lighter and like, well, that's how I felt. I guess we all have different feelings. But I felt lighter. Just, it was such an amazing process. I think I cried. I remember crying a lot and I just felt different. It's amazing. And that can happen with you too. We just have to have the willingness, and be willing to let go of this stuff that we've been holding on to. And when we do that, it's beautiful. So, okay. So that's all I need to talk about tonight. And next week we'll talk about step 7, 8, and 9. So beautiful. All right. Let me get back to my script here. Okay. Okay. So in closing, 7 tradition. Every group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. This group does not have a payment structure in place and currently requires no overhead expenses. If you would like to fulfill Tradition 7, please direct contributions directly to the Al-Anon World Service Office by visiting alanon.org. For questions about this meeting or if you are looking for a sponsor, please send emails to alanonbigbookrecovery@gmail.com. Recordings can be accessed on YouTube by searching @Al-Anon Step Speaker in the YouTube search box. If you are interested in other Al-Anon meetings that follow the Big Book, please visit www.alanonbigbookssolutiongroup.org. And I'm going to read from page 164 from the Big Book. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, but you obviously cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and for countless others. This is a great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Now, let's have a moment of silence for the Al-Anon who still suffers, followed by the Lord's Prayer or a prayer of your own choosing said in silence. Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording.